Welcome to East by West Farms. Here we grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Today I'm going to talk about seeds, specifically the legume seeds. Right now, we're at the end of February, early March time frame, and in 8B, it's a season for seeding, and you can plant a lot of pretty much all kinds of seeds from cool season vegetable to summer vegetable. We're going to have a series of video talking about seeds. In order to have a whole food diet, you need to plant your seeds by family so that you have the same family all year round. So for example, for beans, that's the legume family. You want to plant cool season legume, warm season legume, and the hot season legume so that you have the legume in your diet throughout the year. First, I'm going to talk about cool season legumes. The two legumes that we planted in winter or early winter, later fall is fava beans and peas. For the fava beans, you can go to the halal store and basically they have all kinds of fava beans. So we had a video about that. Chris basically just raided the fava bean section and grab whatever different fava bean they have and plant it all over the place. They did very well in just fresh garden that we just till it and put it in, and they grow very well. They can stand the cold. We had this historic ice storm. Some of them look really bad during that time, and they come out, the leaves was blackened. I thought that they were dead. But 1 week after the ice storm, they all stand up, and some even have flowers. So look like they all survived the historic ice storm, and we're going to get a lot of fava beans in March and April when there are not many other vegetables that are producing. The second cool season legume is peas. This is green pea, and we also tried yellow peas. They were all doing pretty well. The thing is with peas, of course, you can wait long enough to have the pod, to eat the pea pods, but the leaves are also very tasty. Right now, it's maybe a little bit too late to plant peas here because we have a relatively shorter spring in 8B here. I'm still going to plant it just for the pea tips. The fava beans is much forgiving for the heavy clay soil we have. Last year, the fava bean did very well. They grow very tall, about 3-4 feet tall, and they can stand the wind very well. The peas are a little bit delicate. They don't like too much cold. They didn't seem to like the clay too much, and they also have to have trellis. This year, I see that the peas are doing much better after 1 year of seasonal the soil conditioning. If you are starting a new garden with the native soil, then fava bean is the one to go. Next, I'm going to talk about warm season legume. And in front of me, you can see three. That's red bean, mung bean, and the soybeans. Last year, we planted the mung bean. It did really well on the native clay, and the red bean did reasonably well. So we have saved some seeds. The only thing with the moonbean is that the pot is kind of small, so it's kind of tedious to collect the beans. So I was not planning to plant it this year, but then I realized that actually I can use the beans for sprout. And so I don't need to really separate the beans from the pot. You can also sprout them. And that is probably the fastest way to get some vegetable from seeds to table. Typically take 4 or 5 days to grow bean sprout from seeds to table. And then you have vegetable to cook. So since this year we had some issue with the grasshopper and the chicken eating our vegetable, and then the historic ice storm that hit us. So we don't have a lot of vegetable now. That's why I have these 2 big mason jar of moonbeans and soybeans. This is just to sprout for eating. And next week, we probably will eat lots of bean sprouts. Another warm season legume, that's the beans, either pole beans or bush beans. The germination temperature, from what I see here, is between 68 to 86. So that to us is kind of late March. To be safe, I typically directly sow them in the soil in later March. I heard that legume don't like transplant. Usually I direct sow all my legumes, but I do see people actually start from indoors. So I'm going to try it this year to have some that start indoor and the transplant and compare with the ones that I direct sow to see how well they do. I like the flat ones. You can see because they take less time to cook. The round one that you buy from Walmart or Aldi, they just take forever to cook, and I usually don't eat them. But the one that you plant yourself, I find that they cook much faster. Most of the legume actually require higher temperature to germinate, like it get into the 80s or 90s. And also they take quite some time to get beans. Last year was the first year that we planted peanuts, and they did very well in the native black clay soil. We can just pour out the peanuts and eat the raw peanuts that way. And the taste is so good that you just have to try it. For Chris, he gets blown away because he have never had fresh peanuts fresh out of the ground before. Peanuts probably is still a little bit too early to grow. We learned that you can eat peanuts sprout while we were touring around China. It's very regional, but it's really tasty and supposed to be very healthy. That's why I'm soaking the seeds now, the peanuts now, because I want to grow some peanut sprout for cooking. Another legume that did well in the black clay is this black eye beans. I planted them just for nitrogen fixer, and I didn't know what does it taste. And turns out the bean pot actually tastes like much better than green beans, and it cooks much better too. So this year I'm going to plant a lot of them. They did really well on the native black clay over here. Of course, we have the black beans. This actually is some type of soybean as well, but they like warmer temperature. This is the white bean. I have no idea what kind of bean it is. It just says white bean. When in doubt, I just assume it's a hot season beans. A lot of you guys are familiar with the spaghetti beans. The long bean is a very prolific summer beans that really you can do a lot of things with it. So that's why I have 4 packages of it. One seed I don't have is the hyacinth bean, which is really a late summer bean or legume, and it has this very showy flowers. I didn't collect the beans because they self-sprout pretty well. So I just let it the pot drop, and then next year when the weather condition is right, it will come out. They have very characteristic leaf shape, so I will be able to identify them if they indeed sprout out. A final note about legume is that you can collect the seeds, and of course they can store well as an emergency food, but you can also collect the seeds and use it for next season. I didn't do a whole lot last season because of the pandemic. We just ate all the beans. When you plant the seeds directly in the soil, that has a selection process that the red seeds actually that will adjust the genetics to adapt to the soil. That means that the seeds you collect from your own garden is already self-selected to be more accommodated to the condition you have in the garden. I did collect some seeds over here, and I'm going to try to compare the ones that I grow from store-bought seeds and the seeds that I collected from my own garden, and to see if I see any difference, and to prove that theory either correct or wrong. This is part 1 of a series of videos we're talking about seeds. In this video, we talk about the legume family. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the squash family. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumb up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below. If you have not done so, please hit the subscribe button to follow our journey with the East by West Farms.